Part 2 of James O'Keefe's Disney tapes are out, and when combined with Part 1, it would appear that the overall takeaway so far is that Disney will discriminate against white males in lower and middle level positions. But for the C-suite, being a white male plus one more characteristic would appear to be an absolute requirement. Let's dive in. We already covered part 1 of the Disney tapes, in which VP Michael Giordano was exposed, admitting on camera that in the name of DEI, it is overt Disney policy to illegally discriminate against white males in order to bring up the numbers of non-white employees. That, of course, is good for the G in ESG, governance, which measures how good companies are at implementing ESG. And if some actual laws have to be broken along the way, well, you can't make an omelette without breaking a few eggs, I suppose. Michael Giordano, a lawyer who graduated from Harvard no less, didn't seem to mind at any rate, knowing full well a lawsuit probably would be coming at some point in the future. On a side note, if you are hiring for your company and the graduate is coming from Harvard or any other elite university, you probably should think twice about making that hire. Maybe a Harvard education was good at some point in time, but if so, that was a long time ago. But moving on to part 2, this time it was Disney's television director of production and finance, showed up Dave Macker, who was exposed. Let's look at the notable bits. First, he spoke about how there was an awareness that when it came to diversity on screen, they may at times have gone too far.
Even Dave thinks Disney has gone too far, pushing the DEI thing in their programming. He talks about in one recent failed show, Debt and Other Details, where Disney tried so hard to push the DEI window that it totally tanked the show.
I feel like in our show we insert diversity when it's not really like organic to the story.
It
kind of stands out, like this just feels like a weird
orchestrated.
Yes, that's the word, orchestrated, right? Like we did a show called Debt and Other Details.
What's it called?
Debt and Other Details.
Okay.
It just came out a couple months back. Now it's a whodunit. The George star cast. The main lead was a really big actor. He is a really big actor.
Okay.
It flopped. The audience didn't connect.
According to Dave, the cause and failure of one of Disney's many flops was again attributed to trying to force DEI into programming where it was not only out of place, it was highly inauthentic.
It happens.
Yeah.
But, if you did the analysis, the post-mortem of it, you're just like, why? Because the story, they just tried to feed in so much diversity and they took away from what could be authentic. It just didn't feel authentic.
Yeah.
The characters felt like, oh, they're trying to hit a box. Like, there's one lesbian character there, there's one like African American, there's one Indian, there's one Chinese, there's one this. But it just felt like these people would never be together in that setting. You know what I'm saying?
Wouldn't you have liked to be a fly on the wall in that meeting, just watching the guy with the DEI checklist? Chinese, check. African American, check. Lesbian, check. Indian, check.
Yes.
I know, yeah.
It's just like, it doesn't feel authentic. I'm like, that's the word you guys are missing. Authenticity, Like, when you're doing a show, it's gotta feel real. It's gotta feel like, wow, this is like, the way it is.
Really?
The cognitive dissonance on display here is unbelievable. For years now, we heard Hollywood types harp on about how diverse the world is and how this or that show reflects what the world actually looks like, which of course no such show ever does. Such shows may reflect what parts of LA and New York look like, and even that is debatable, but they don't reflect anywhere else on the planet. On the contrary, every single show where diversity, representation and inclusion are presented as selling points looks like made by committee checklist productions, and they're all seen as wholly inauthentic worldwide. But Macker doesn't seem to have this level of awareness when it comes to the LGBTQIAP+ issue though. There, he proved himself to be every bit as deranged as everyone else we've heard in Disney.
What about, like, the LGBTQ?
Yeah.
I want to see them do it more in, like, the kids' shows.
That'd be great, yeah.
Are you asking me on a date?
Your pulse and heartbeat have quickened.
No.
It's the way the world is. You can't like pretend it doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
And say like, oh, we're just going to show like one section of society. That's all the world is. The world is like full of everybody.
Right.
And that should be on screen.
That's my little sib Blake and her girlfriend Ghibli.
Following in Mom's wake.
Oh, nonsense. I'm just an architect.
It's important, I think, for me to see, like, you know, the LGBTQ stories and, like, especially for kids so that they can understand all of that and you know, introduce it to them just so that they're comfortable and all this stuff. Like, do you think that Disney, like, makes that a priority?
I think they are. To an extent, they
Do you think it's authentic? Like,
not quite. Netflix does it better.
Ignoring for the moment that he thinks Netflix are more authentic about it. These brainwashed fools actually think their content reflects what the world looks like. It doesn't. As we saw in the previous installment, Michael Giordano made the mistake of believing that his little abode in Hollywood in any way, shape or form reflected the world at large, which it doesn't. Which led him to overestimate the proportion of the population that falls within the larger LGBTQ community by an order of magnitude, and MacLeod appears to do the same thing. No one has ever said there shouldn't be any kind of representation, but at both Disney and Netflix for that matter, there isn't so much representation as much as there is wild and overt over-representation, to the point where it too becomes inauthentic. MacLeod's derangement also appears to extend towards Elon Musk.
something that was like, you know, obviously there's all this drama with Bob Iger and Elon Musk and like all this stuff, and like I was reading something because, you know, people have come down on Disney.
He does stuff for like publicity.
Okay.
Like, but it works for him. So I don't take what he says literally. Like Elon believes this.
Do you think he actually believes in free speech?
No. No. He doesn't. Alright, so his biggest thing was I want free speech, right?
Right.
People joined Twitter and started impersonating him. He blocked those people from Twitter.
How dare they?
How's that free speech?
Yeah.
So I'm like, you're the owner, you can make up rules as you go. Like, free speech means anything. Free speech. If I want to impersonate you, I should be allowed. Right? That's your whole speech, right?
Yeah.
Unfettered access to whatever you want to say.
What do you think Elon's motive is?
Attention.
Attention? You think he cares that much about attention?
He's a narcissist. All he cares about it. He's got a big ego. You're feeling that. People like him love spotlight. He wants to be in that news. He wants to be in the front page every day saying, Elon Musk did this, Elon Musk said that. That gives him energy. I've seen people like that. I know people like that. You know, like they love that energy. They thrive on it. They want that spotlight.
Well, it takes one to know one, I guess, and he certainly misrepresented Elon Musk along the way. You see, impersonating someone else crosses the border from free speech into fraud. And it isn't just that impersonating Elon Musk isn't allowed, it's impersonating anyone, period. Unless you declare it's a parody account. Then it's no longer fraud, and you're free to impersonate anyone, up to and including Elon Musk himself. So MacLeod isn't just misrepresenting Elon Musk here, he's being outright deceptive. Let's move on to Bob Iger though, who MacLeod seems to believe isn't going anywhere anytime soon.
Do you think Bob Iger is corrupt?
Now, yes. Now he just wants to stay in power. He came with a 2-year promise. In 2 years, I'll turn the company around and I'll get you a new CEO. He extended that to 2026. He got rid of a few people who were like, who could have been against him. He got rid of her. Like one CFO, Christine McCarthy. She was the CFO of Disney. He got rid of her. That's why I felt I said, okay, I see this. Like he's removing any potential threat. She could have been CEO.
Yes, you heard that right. He, like many, believe Bob Iger is corrupt. And if you look at the recent filings of Disney shareholder Nelson Peltz, it seems others carry the same sentiment.
Do you think Bob Iger is corrupt?
Now, yes.
Why does Dave Mocker think that Bob Iger is corrupt? Is it because of his hiring practices, his insistence on pushing bizarre sexual and racial content on young kids, or how he uses his power and influence for political fundraising for far-left causes and leftist politicians? Who knows?
Well, if I were to hazard a guess, it would be that it looks to me like Bob Iger is doing the bidding of the likes of BlackRock and JP Morgan Chase, both of whom are outspoken supporters of DEI and stakeholder capitalism, and both of whom supported Iger in the shareholder proxy battle and okayed him appointing every single member of Disney's board, so no one there represents the interests of any of the other shareholders, or will give them any kind of insight into how Disney is actually being run, in violation of fiduciary responsibilities. But hey, that's my guess. What do I know? I would have liked for Mocker to go into more detail here. Now, let's move on to the most salacious part of the whole exposé.
Just when you thought there is no way Disney will hire you if you're a white man, Disney Dave tosses us a curveball. Imagine seeing this ad in the Help Wanted section. Job opening, Disney C-suite, must be a Jewish white man. Okay, so it isn't quite that overt. But let's say that you're lucky enough to get a job at Disney and you're setting your sights on going all the way up the corporate ladder. What's it going to take to get there? Again, by now, it has clearly been established that it's almost impossible to get hired and or promoted at Disney as a white man.
You know, I've been at the company 11 years now, so I have friends in HR and I have friends in those divisions, and they're like, look, nobody else is going to tell you this, Mike, but they're not considering any white males for this job. They're just not. That's not what they're like.
And of course, we heard how Disney even bonuses executives for hiring non-whites.
There's literally like a percentage of my bonus at the end of the year is theoretically based on whether I have hired, supported, mentored people who bring diversity.
Whether you, what kind of mentor? What do you mean?
Like if I've done things to help further the careers of people who bring diversity.
Oh, wow.
That's hiring them or helping them to get promoted or mentoring them.
That is until you apply for a job in Disney's coveted C-suite where their top executives hang out. Though Disney makes a big show of pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion across middle management and even in their casting and staffing of their productions, Dave Mocker claims that Disney has a glass ceiling when you get to the top, and you have to be a white Jewish man if you want a shot at making it into the C-suite.
It was really cool to hear that, you know, that they take that into consideration, like, you know, bringing in people from diverse backgrounds and that kind of thing.
There's also a slight glass ceiling for that. I feel like it's not, there's a glass ceiling. It's not quite like been breached yet. You're not going to see a CFO I guess, for lack of a word, non-white, non-Jewish.
Dave goes on to point out that the tech industry is run by Indians.
Hold it right there. It just so happens to be that I have some professional experience in this area myself, more specifically with fintech. The big hedge, of course, is that my experience is from Northern Europe, not America and not Hollywood. Maybe Indians really do run the tech industry there, I can't speak to that, but they sure don't where I'm at. Don't get me wrong, even in my part of the world, many companies have outsourced significant parts of their tech teams to Indian IT consultancy companies, because up front, that looked like it was going to be cheaper. That being said, many experienced that by the time the final bug fixes were done and deployed, turned out it wasn't that much cheaper anyway. A number of these companies have since given their coding assignments to Eastern European companies or even AI instead. Point being, while I don't discount India's contribution to IT, in many parts of the world, Indian consulting companies are used as little more than cheap coding labor. But they don't actually run things, nor do they hold any positions of authority in the hiring companies. Certainly not where I have personal experience, which again is Northern Europe, keep that in mind. Still, based on that experience, I think Makker may be a tad prone to exaggeration and hyperbole. Keep that in mind as we go forward.
And the entertainment business is run by white Jewish men, and that unless you are a white Jewish man, well, you're likely never going to see Disney's C-suite.
In tech, everybody's like brown. All the all the CEOs are like, all the tech companies mostly India. You look at it now.
So you think that they wouldn't hire a C-suite who's not white or not Jewish?
In entertainment, no. That is, but it's not just us. It's like every studio you look at, you'll find Indians pretty much higher there. You find like the chief technology officer, he'll be Indian, obviously technology, right?
He even claims that a very well-qualified Haitian Hispanic woman who had rapidly worked her way up the Disney ladder left the company, acknowledging that she likely had no future there, oddly enough, because she wasn't white, Jewish, or man enough.
She was like Haitian and Hispanic.
Haitian,
Hispanic mix. She just left Disney like a month ago. She left because she didn't really have, she's a woman, she didn't really have either of her bosses in her corner.
Okay.
And she quit saying that she just was like, I was just not feeling right. So I feel, and that being said, that the department heads are two Jewish men. Not that I'm anything against Jewish men, just saying that she, being of color, felt that and she quit. Because she just said that I can't seem to like him.
Yeah, I bet that no controversy will come from this, but let's keep our heads cool. First, keep in mind that this reading of the situation is the observation of one non-C-suite employee of Indian origin, describing the experience of a former employee, a woman of mixed Haitian and Latin descent. Hence, we are dealing with the interpretation of the situation by someone who, as I just established, may be prone to hyperbole and exaggeration. As such, Makker's comments should be regarded as circumstantial evidence, not a smoking gun. A smoking gun would have been if a white male of Jewish descent actually in the C-suite admitted on camera that it's Disney policy to only hire male Ashkenazi Jews for C-suite positions. That would have been a smoking gun, but that's not what this is. This, again, is circumstantial evidence. The beauty here, though, is that Disney's executive leadership is actually public and on their website, so let's have a look at it. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that family names change, both with marriage and over longer timescales, to adapt to new locations. So you can't always tell whether someone is Jewish based on their name alone, but you can often tell if they aren't. So let's see who we have here. First up is Bob Iger, Jewish. Then we have Tanisha Agramonte, head of diversity, who doesn't look too Jewish to me, and I think that we can safely conclude that neither is Asad Ayas. Alan Bergman is, insofar as I know, Jewish. Not sure about Bowditch or Sonia Coleman, but the names D'Amato, Gomez, Guterres and Pitaro would suggest that they're definitely not Jewish. But some of the people listed so far are merely head of departments and not C-suite, which are the top executives only. The CFO is C-suite though, and Disney's CFO, a recent Bob Iger hire no less, is Hugh Johnson, who is not Jewish. So that alone busts the notion that Disney will only hire white Jewish males for its C-suite. As for the remaining executives, I know for a fact that Dana Walden is Jewish. Don't know about the remaining others, but I don't have to know, because even at cursory glance, I can say that of the 16 executive leaders, at least 8 are not Jewish. I'm a big proponent of what O'Keefe is doing here, and while Makker was the one low-key making this accusation, I do think O'Keefe maybe should have taken a look at Disney's organizational chart before seemingly accepting Makker's interpretation of events and running with that as the headline for this exposé, especially in light of current events in the world. Because if such key information doesn't check out, it only harms the perception of the reporting as a whole. If there was a smoking gun here, proving Makker to be right, that would have been an issue. And to be clear, it would have been yet another Bob Iger issue. But as it stands, all we have is Mucker's interpretation of events. With accusations like these, stronger evidence must be presented, or it can only backfire on O'Keefe. There is at least one more Disney tape coming, which we of course will be covering. Until then, let me know your thoughts on this in the comments.